All right. So, Josh, do us a favor.
Yeah.
It seems as if you have a little bit of a background.
You know what you're talking about.
In the Chinese.
Sure.
Whoa.
Don't say that.
In the Chinese balloon surveillance
Game.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure.
That field.
Balloon.
That area.
Chinese balloon game.
That area
Aerial
of
ballooning. Yeah.
expertise.
High altitude ballooning. Right.
Sounded like the last episode we ever recorded.
So
That's correct.
They'll pack us up.
If you thought saying the F word in the first 2 minutes was a problem, just buckle up.
you partook in very similar experiments. As it,
Your choice of words. It's very
I'm
incriminating.
going to Guantanamo.
I lied. We shouldn't be recording.
Very incriminating choice of words there.
I'm here.
so much so that you are licensed
Yes,
in the,
that's correct.
in the technology.
That's correct. That is
Now-
correct. Yep. Mhm.
Can you tell me what is required of a aerial spy balloon licensee? Like what do you have to do to get that?
Yeah.
Who hands that out?
All right. First off,
Is the FAA regulating this?
Yeah.
yes.
Great question.
First off, the license is not in aerial balloon spying. A. The license that I hold that allowed me to participate in these ballooning projects was an amateur radio license.
Potato.
Sure, I'll give you that. And that basically we could track it using amateur licensed frequencies that I was authorized to
So what
license.
you're saying is it's very easy to obtain this license.
Yes.
To
4-hour
and
course.
it's
Spy
also
balloons.
very easy to launch such a balloon.
so you know how to do this.
We're just trying to get to the
stop
root of it.
I should just
If you keep
stop
answering the
talking.
questions.
But not only can you do this easily, it's anybody can get this license.
Anybody could get this license. And to answer your question, you just have to notify the FAA that you'll be launching and provide them the anticipated track. And then it's completely allowed.
So what are we tracking?
What are the Chinese tracking, or what did I track?
Let's do both.
All right.
And let's see if they cross paths.
The project that I participated in
When was this project?
this is a long time ago.
Good answer.
15 years ago. The project, they still do it though, at the University of Maryland, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
The project,
Cover your head.
the project that I participated in essentially sent a very fancy GoPro 100,000 feet in the air and then took photographs of the Earth's curvature, including the ice wall that the government guards at the edge of the flat Earth.
Oh, well, somebody's got to document it.
No, yeah.
And the mammoths.
And then it would track temperature and humidity and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff for atmospheric
How
science.
cold is it up there?
It's very fucking cold up
At
there.
100,000? What are we
Very
talking?
cold.
100,000 feet?
Negative
100,000 feet.
70 or 80 Celsius.
How
And the
high?
GoPro still works.
Yeah, it was actually quite a task to build a heating mechanism that would keep it
Warm enough.
within its
So it's like in
operating
a
temperature.
box that's keeping it warm.
Yes,
Is
and
that
just
battery?
the lens was exposed, and even that was behind glass that insulated
Is
it a
that
bit.
battery operated or
Yes.
solar operated?
Battery operated.
And so the balloon,
yeah,
large balloon,
yeah. Mhm.
really big.
When it would leave the ground, it would be probably 12 feet in diameter, full of helium in our situation.
Yeah.
That's pretty large.
Once it rose to altitude and the decreased pressure, it would get up to maybe 50 feet in diameter.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, huge.
Okay.
Now this balloon, this Chinese spy balloon, was significantly larger than that.
Now, why was it significantly larger?
Because it had what we've seen from the news is that it had some mechanism in it to release gas so that it could change its altitude.
So this was maneuverable.
Correct. That's what it
Yours was
looked
not.
like. That is correct. Ours simply followed whatever winds, and we had to follow the
Just
prediction of
goes
the
up,
winds.
catches the wind.
That's right. We would release from Western Maryland, and we'd have usually 2 or 3 teams. And looking at the forecast for the day, we'd say, okay, there's a 70% chance it'll go east over, let's say Baltimore County. But there's also a chance it would go into Pennsylvania or go west into West Virginia.
Pennsylvania
so we'd send,
Avenue or Pennsylvania State?
Good question. So we'd send teams in all different directions.
Okay.
And very quickly, within about 20 minutes of flight,
We knew
we'd see
where-
where it would go. And then everybody would
Yeah.
focus on one
Okay.
direction. So in this situation, the Chinese balloon had the ability, from what we've seen, to adjust its altitude in order to intentionally grab these airstreams So they couldn't necessarily say, okay, I want to go north, turn the engines on, let's go north. But they had atmospheric predictions and they knew where the jet streams were.
You could, in theory, maneuver it to a degree.
Yeah, definitely. Within, I would say, if you want to go, let's say, east, I imagine that they had the ability to say, to differentiate, do I want to go to Baltimore or do I want to go to Southern Maryland or do I want to go to Richmond?
Yeah.
Beyond that, maybe not so specific, but I don't know the details.
How did they determine, like, okay, how does something like this, is it based on the altitude? How does something like this make it across the Pacific Ocean, or is it launched from the ocean? Like, did they launch it from like a cruiser, submarine, or?
I can only cite news, like public news, obviously, because I don't know.
In your guesstimate.
But from what we've seen, the U.S. was tracking it since it was launched from the east coast of China. It made an almost due eastward, maybe east and southeast track south of Japan to avoid Japanese airspace. And then it entered U.S. airspace and followed the Aleutian Islands and almost exactly up into Alaska and then down into Washington, Idaho, Montana.
Now, was the intent, because if it's letting out gas, right, to change directory or whatever to some extent, can't refill, or can it?
I don't know that. The analogy that I can think of here is submarines. In submarines, you can dive by releasing gas.
Yeah.
And then you would pump water back out to refill in the ballast tanks and you'd go up. Now that's easy because you have two things that are very different buoyancy.
Gas and
water versus gas.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works at altitude. I know you could release gas to come down. I don't know how you would then go back up. It's also very possible that this balloon, when it came over the continental US, it was at about 60,000 feet, they said. It's also very possible that it started at 70,000 when they released it.
Sure.
It had the pressure to rise to 70 and just its journey across the Pacific is what brought it to 60.
So that was going to be my next question, was like, was this kind of on a suicide mission, more or less? Like, was this going to down in the United States? If they knew it's going to go up and it's going to we're going to have to release gases to maneuver it, it's going to start coming down. And at a certain point, we're all going to be aware of it. And there's obviously multiple balloons at this stage that we know of. So was the intention all along, like, we know that these are going to get found out? Or would you say they thought that these were just going to like die off in somewhere else?
So that's interesting, because that's kind of the question that I think is the big one right now.
Yeah, but as an expert in this area, as a professional in the field,
subject matter expert.
Yeah. Shmee.
The idea, the thing is that my opinion on this is the U.S. was going to discover it. U.S., Canada were going to discover it at some point.
Of course.
The assumption here is that the track that they took was intentional. It wasn't just an accident. So it's
a show of force.
With that assumption being made, the U.S. and Canada would have discovered it very quickly. And they did, from what we're seeing. CNN reports that the U.S. has been tracking it since it was launched, or shortly, within a few hours.
Why
not shoot it down over California? Why let it get all the way to South Carolina?
Why let it get so close?
Sure.
So close.
And so that's a question that we don't know. But to get back to what your question was, is it a suicide mission, or was there some idea of recovering it for China? I think it was a suicide mission.
It's transmitting whatever it's getting back is the assumption, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like there's an SD card on there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And it's also very unlikely that they could then maneuver it to catch another jet stream that would go back to China or a friendly country to China, whatever it is. Yeah. It's once you've crossed over the Pacific, it's very difficult to go back or to even continue all the way around, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like these balloons are up there all the time just circumnavigating the globe.
So that's also interesting, because they are actually not necessarily Chinese spy balloons, but the Google Loon project has been going for almost 10 years now. And the idea...
So U.S. spy balloons.
Sure. The idea here is, and maybe more dangerous, but, and I don't know, that's just a hypothetical thing, but the Google Loon project is where they take these balloons, send them up to about 50 or 60,000 feet with LTE and now 5G radios on them.
Yeah.
With highly directional antenna. And the idea is very similar to Starlink, where you can provide internet connection to areas that don't normally have it. So these balloons are highly maneuverable. Google can bring them up and they can bring them down and they can catch jet streams, or they can just hover them and they can provide an internet connection to everybody that's below it.
I have a really in-depth knowledge of this.
So there's a lot of those, and I don't know how many of them are still up, but at one point, maybe 5 years ago, they were all publicly trackable in Flight Radar or Flight Aware or whatever it is. So you could go on and say balloon, and there'd be 30 of them around the world. They launch them from all over the place. They float all over the place. So these balloons are up there. This is just special or newsworthy, I guess, because of its origin
and espionage.
Espionage, right? Exactly.
Now they've recovered the balloon. They shot it down.
Yes, I saw the video.
Tom Cruise.
You saw the video.
Shot
Or
it.
were you there?
No, I saw the.
Has
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Has anyone
I signed the Sidewinder.
has anyone called you since they shot these
Negative
down?
on that.
Sure.
But at the
Josh,
same point, if they had, I would probably say they hadn't.
are there any clicks on your phone or anything that you hear?
Josh, are you a spy? Is what we're
I'm not. But
So-
again,
I have to tell you that.
it's entrapment.
Any theories on like what it is? Like, is it surveillance? Like photos, data capture? Like what would you speculate? They're
I don't know.
getting?
It's really tricky to say because the intelligence community from CNN, and I keep citing CNN, but that's just the one that pops into my head. They're all reporting it. MSNBC.
Yeah.
Everybody's reporting it. All of their subject matter experts, or at least most of them, claim that there's not much more intelligence to be gathered by a balloon at 60,000 feet than you couldn't already gather from a satellite.
Because I was going to ask, like, why a balloon?
above
from a
that,
satellite?
What is the motive behind sending a white
What's
balloon?
a balloon? What's a
Right.
balloon do that a satellite doesn't?
Exactly. So there's
What
there's
can
a
we get into airspace without?
It's just
Reasonable.
odd to me that you send a white balloon
right. It's
in
going
Black
to be
History Month.
You've been waiting for that, and I've talked over that joke a few times. I'm now realizing, and you've just sat quiet, and I appreciate it.
Let it simmer.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I was about to say something much more offensive. So
One that I think we should be raising.
Well,
yeah, but anyway,
you
getting
don't
back
have
to
to put this out.
getting back to the more serious.
I
There's
do
no
have
way,
a real question though.
Yeah, of course.
Why, in vein of that, like, why wouldn't you send like a transparent balloon or like a balloon that like a blue balloon that will blend in with the sky?
Did they track it via the color, or did they track it via the technology on board?
That too.
What
like,
is perceiving it?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the color of the balloon I think is irrelevant. And the reason I say that is because now there's allegations that this has occurred several times prior under the prior administration.
Yes.
I think the reason why this one has been so newsworthy is because it was seen by a civilian first.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they
Wow.
reported it first. So sending up a clear balloon. The other thing is dynamics of like the material. I'm not a material scientist, but there's got to be a reason why they would have chosen a white balloon over a clear balloon necessarily.
What are your
Maybe the
reasons
plastic
that you
is
think?
stronger on a white balloon than is on a clear balloon.
I mean, as
I
somebody
don't-
who's built many of these,
sure,
why would
ours
you-
was white.
why? Yeah, why'd you go with that?
Because that's just the
Why would
most
you-
common.
Why wouldn't you choose a black balloon?
Because it would
Do you have an
immediately.
affinity for color, Josh?
You'd immediately get shot down. Okay. I'm done.
Gosh, golly, there it is.
Oh my god.
The BGB. We'll be back with the BGB.
Oh my god.
Man,
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see what's on that balloon in 30 to 50 years when it's declassified.
but you have no guess as to why a balloon versus a satellite. Like you couldn't speculate as to
Oh, it's a soft threat.
what's the difference.
yes,
It's a soft threat.
I agree with that.
So
Soft threat meaning
in international politics, there are things that are clear threats, things that are and things that are not threats at all. This is a very soft threat. because just like the intelligence community is saying, there's nothing that you can gather from a balloon that you can't get from a satellite.
So they just want us to know that they
want
can
us to
send
know
a
that they
balloon
can.
over here.
Yeah.
And if they want to, they can.
They can get through the airspace. Yeah.
And I think it's also a very powerful propaganda piece for their own citizens. Right now, they're making claims that the U.S. response was exaggerated and that they had no right to do it, and that the U.S. is now stealing technology, which a few days ago was claiming was a civilian. Now the wording is they're stealing our technology. So I think it's very powerful that they can control the message to their population, and the population will generally believe whatever is said. You know, it's it's great for China to say, oh, the U.S. is overexerting their military power, you know, and on something that, and there could have been nothing on it. You know, with that idea in mind, if that was the goal, that soft threat and this propaganda, it could have just been a cardboard box.
Can you make an argument for the balloon? Like, is there a justification for it? Like, could China come out and say, oh, it was students and they were just experimenting?
Well, that's kind of what they've already tried to use. They already they already claimed that it was a civilian experiment gone wrong for weather and blah, blah, blah.
Would you say that could be true? Or would you, like, is that theoretically possible in your opinion? Or do you believe, as somebody, again, who has built many of these balloons, would you say that is technically possible? Or would you
certainly
say,
possible.
Like, could you build a balloon and then send it into China?
No, because generally when these things happen and students do things like this, before it even gets out of the national airspace, the governments are
alerted because of
Yeah.
So they would have known, is what you're saying.
Yes, and that gets back to Courtney's question: does the FAA know about this?
But what if you don't register it? What if you're like a lone balloonist?
Well, then it would be the same thing.
Even more reason for them to be on you.
So if you fill a balloon,
if I filled a balloon and I released it here, that would be on military radar as soon as it was
would they know?
10,000 feet.
How would they know?
Active radar.
But what's in it?
They wouldn't necessarily know what's in it until they intercepted it.
But wouldn't radar require
down.
some sort of like metal or something in there to be detectable? You're saying it can just detect the helium?
It's not a metal detector. It receives a ping back, something that bounces
a radio
back.
frequency.
So a balloon.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that something would need to be more dense than that to ping
Not
back.
necessarily.
Okay,
I mean,
so a radar is
that's how Doppler radar works, right? We predict the weather, and Doppler radar can see clouds.
Okay.
Because of the humidity.
So the radar is not
difference.
pinging like it can ping anything. It's not substance
There's
necessarily.
not to go too deep down a rabbit hole. There's two different radars: active and passive radars. In air travel, commercial air travel, we use what's called passive radar, it's active, where we send out a ping and the aircraft's computer sends a ping back.
Yeah.
Like seeing
identifies
IP
the
address, like a ping to make sure that you're getting a reception
Correct.
on another end. Okay.
Versus the other side, where we can send out a ping and whatever bounces back we'll just listen to. So that's the thing. If you send out a radar, sweep, whatever bounces back is going to show up on the scope on the screen.
Gotcha.
And if it's not filed a flight plan, or it's not the approximate size of an aircraft or whatever, then it's going to raise red flags.
As a active balloonist, are you outraged? What?
Yeah, what are the forums saying?
Like,
I am not that active.
Do all balloons matter? Like,
knew you were going for something else.
I stance on community ballooning.
because if I just want to, you do this, right? And if Josh is so
I'm just saying, here's what I'm saying. I'm saying, obviously China had to do something extravagant, right? Because in these balloon forums, if you aren't doing something crazy, you're just relegated to the back of the forum.
Okay. All right.
That's fair.
So we're segregating the balloonists now.
All right.
I respect it.
I mean, we are not, but it appears as though China is. So,
Yeah.
So we're thinking, had somebody not seen this balloon, nothing would have happened. Like we wouldn't.
We
have
probably
shot it
wouldn't
down.
have heard about it.
No, but do you think we would have shot it down?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you think we've been shooting these down all the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the majority of them don't make it into our airspace.
Why have we seen many of them though? Because there's reports of several now. And I don't think it's not coming from the government, right? Like people are seeing them.
People are lying.
People are what?
People are lying.
Lying?
Yeah.
So we've only actually found one.
Most likely.
Yeah, or two. There was reports of one over Latin, like Central America. But yeah, right. That could also be highly exaggerated.
People get sensational and they,
Got you.
Yeah. I mean, how many
And
people
they
have seen
lie.
Bigfoot?
yeah.
You know?
Great question.
Thousands.
Great question. Well, guys, thanks for watching the balloon episode.
This is not what we were supposed to talk about.
I thought this was very informational.
This is actually the most informative episode we've done.
Yeah,
yet.
actually, yeah.
The balloon episode. This is great. I'm
got
excited
science and
about
politics.
this. Remember that kid that got like stuck in that like spaceship looking balloon thing?
Correct.
Like
Boy in the balloon in Colorado.
Yeah, flew all over Colorado.
And he didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
It was
He wasn't
all
in
bullshit.
there.
He wasn't. It was just them trying to get
What
on
a
the news.
dramatic time in life. That was a
Yeah.
really simple time, though, if
Yeah.
you think about it. Because like we were
Yeah.
all glued to the screen, and Matt was just watching that silver thing fly all over the place.
When was that?
didn't
shoot.
Boy
Wild, man.
balloon boy hoax? 2009.
Yeah, that was a simpler time.
Yep.
And what's so simple about that? To recover that kid, it's not that hard.
Sure.
Well, you can't shoot it down.
No, but you can fly close to it.
Now, what kind of balloon was that, Josh?
It was just one of these same balloons that I'm describing
Gotcha.
right here in mine, just covered with a tarp and
Yeah.
then tied off to a small plywood and you know,
Yeah.
Poor kid.
presumably.
I wonder
Yeah.
I wonder where he is now.
Yeah, I was about to say. I wonder what he's.
What's the balloon kid up to these days?
Yeah,
Selling
he's-
balloon rides?
I wonder if he has Instagram.
Still floating away.
God.
Let's see. I'm actually trying. I'm now. I'm really trying to figure this out to see like where these people are right now. I can't
all
provide
right.
an answer
It's all good.
in a good amount of time.
It's all good. We'll close
Yeah.
out the balloon episode.
Yeah.
We'll wrap on that.